Hi there. This is a short video that will show you how to properly use and introduce our newest feature to an addition to the Boss Revolution Money Transfer Portal, which is the one-page view of the landing page for our money transfer, or otherwise known as the new transaction submit screen. I will illustrate by logging in and then going to the money transfer section. As you can see, I'll describe this a little bit. As you can see on the top part of the screen, the tabs have not changed. Everything's remained the same, as including the balance section that comes right underneath it. But in between now, you see these two steps, these two tabs, if you will. This is very important for those of you who prefer to submit the transaction in the old process, which was a stepped process where each step you don't see actually the next step until you put in the input data and then you hit next or save. The new approach presents all of the information on a single page. We've done that by popular demand, and I will help illustrate that. But just to remind everyone who's currently a customer, if you want to ever go back to the old way, you simply have to click on the multi-step version up top and you'll be able to see the old flow, okay, or the existing flow that we are adding to. Now let's go back to the new flow, which is the one-page version. Oh, one more point. As you transact, the portal is smart enough that it remembers your preference, which means if your last transaction was done using the multi-step version or the legacy version, the next time you try to do a new customer, it'll revert back to that. And if your last transaction was done using the one-page version, which is the new one we're introducing, then that will be your default, as it is on my account, as you can see. Now I'm gonna show you a few basic things, and by the way, this also remains unchanged. You get the alerts if there are actions or messages that came from HQ that you need to do something, or is a notification of an event that took place, like a cancellation. Okay, now let's go right into the new things that this one-page approach presents. First off, before I put in any customer information, I'm going to talk about really quickly. In the old approach, when a customer walks up to your store and asks for, well, what's the rate to Electra in Mexico if I send $100 today? To give the customer the full printout of what our rates are as well as the customer fee, you would have had to either simulate a fake transaction without any customer names. This is the assumption that the customer didn't give you a name, they just want to know the rate. You can do a quick rate lookup, but that would just give you the rate, not the fees. But if you wanted to see everything, including fees, you'd have to go to the estimator, select the country, select the the payer, etc. Now we've made that very simple. On the landing page, I didn't put anything here. By default, this section is pre-populated with Mexico, but you can always change it to any country you want. Sending $100, all I have to do, this is Soriana, I can say Electra, Mexico, and I can say print estimate. That's it. I didn't put in any customer information. It's as soon as I'm on the page, and you can see whatever you have, which is we don't have any sender or recipient information, but we do have Electra in Mexico, any location. It's a, I'm sending $100, and it's a $10 fee for that amount, and it's the rate is $20.85. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully it does. I'll move on now. That's one function. So we've brought in the benefit of the estimator flow into this page now. Without any other customer information, you can just do this. If the customer says, I like it, let's go ahead, then you can start your transaction. Your transaction flow should always begin with a customer search. In the past version, the search had multiple tabs, if you will. You could either search by phone number, which was the most popular and the most accurate, or you could search by name or a combination thereof, or by wire number. We've combined some of those elements. So now you can actually search by either a name, a number, name-only searches, for example, were not allowed in the multi-step version, but in this version they are. So I'm just going to illustrate that. I'm going to pick my first, mid, last. This is a test account I have. And right off the bat, what you will see is the screen, the entire screen, will be populated. And I'll explain what this means, but the entire screen will be populated with all of the information I need to be able to just hit process, and I'm done. It's a single click, select a customer, and everything's pre-selected. Now, you're going to say, what was just pre-selected? Well, what we've done is that we are selecting that sender's last recipient amount and details, payer, location. In this case, it was a recipient in Pakistan, so I have the account number and everything. The account number is saved, so we have everything. So all I have to do is hit process. The only caveat is that in Pakistan, it's one of those destinations where the sender's date of birth is required, and mine is not on file, so it's prompting me for that. And you can see it'll be in red. So if any one of these fields are missing or any required information is missing, you'll see a similar note in red under that field. So you can review it and see what errors you may have in case you do, and correct them or collect that information. That's the first thing. So repeating any given customer's latest transaction, when most customers are sending to the same person every other week, it becomes a much more expedient process, a much faster process and checkout process. That was at the core of the new design, to make things even much faster for our stores. Okay, now if I wanted to say, if the customer said, well, I'm not sending it to that person, this time I'm sending it to a different person, there are two screens I want to make you familiar with. One is the history, the other one is the ability to change the recipient, which is a very frequent flow. History is basically you're going to be able to see past transactions. In this case, there was really one past transaction, and I can always go back. Remember, this is a test account, so in a real scenario, if there were more than one transaction that this sender did with this recipient, you would see them listed. Or you can simply click on that X to change the receiver, and I can select any other receiver. I'll select someone in Guatemala, and this person in Guatemala is basically, again, everything's pre-filled for me. I don't have to put in any information. I just have to select that recipient and hit process. And what's selected for me is the last amount that was sent. If the customer says, I want to change the amount, you can always change it. You want to send 100? That's fine. We'll change it to 100. Do you want to use a different payer, Banco Industrial? Fine. We'll change it to Banco Industrial. And this is sorry, didn't select it. And this is the beauty of the new flow, is that we are simplifying the order entry process when submitting a transaction. The next thing that I would like to make you familiar with is what these green buttons are there for. These green buttons you see right next to the X's, by the way, the X is to change that selection, right? So if I wanted to pick a different sender, I simply have to X here and put in a different sender. And that's it. That's as simple as that. And if I want to go back to my other sender, I can simply go there. Again, this works also with phone numbers, as I said earlier. And that'll come up. The next step I'd like to make you familiar with is the submit process itself. The print estimate, which I clicked on earlier, is an important step. This is basically the ability in the current flow, in the legacy flow. You had a little red button, a big red button right next to the submit, which was the print estimate. We've redesigned that to make it more intuitive. So when you're on this step where everything's been selected, before you go to process, you could give a print estimate, meaning a pre-receipt, We highly advise that so that the customer can read all the details. This will help you avoid cancellations, for example, due to a typo or selecting the wrong, putting the wrong amount or wrong destination or whatever the case may be. You can simply print estimate. And this time, unlike the first time where I didn't put any customer information, this time you'll see that it'll basically have everything that a normal receipt does, right? It'll have the fact that it's, the sender, the receiver, amounts, exchange rates, the payer, it's a bank deposit at Barclays in Pakistan, going to this IBAN account, etc., etc. So it has all of the details, the agency information, etc., etc. But it has the important, this is not a receipt, to indicate that this is a pre-receipt. If the customer accepts this and, says that everything is accurate, then you can simply go and process. And you're done. And when you're processing, after you process, it'll obviously go to the normal step, as it does today, of giving you the note. I'm going to select a different receiver here because of the birth date requirement for Pakistan. Let me go back to Guatemala, and I can just take that $10 and submit, just so you see that a transaction will be submitted successfully and that you'll get a receipt. And then I will show you after that the process of looking at the history. As you can see, this is very similar to what you have today. You have your receipt information, and I can just click on this and get to the receipt. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the same recipient, and now I will show you I will show you that the history has been updated. This is my latest transaction, $10 right here. And here I have these three little dots. These three little dots are menu items, so basically it's the actions that I can take against that transaction. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. I can either cancel it, get the receipt again, right? Reprint the receipt, and that'll take you to the receipt. Or I can repeat that transaction. It's the same actions that you have in the current version, except in here it's under those three dots. I will initiate a cancellation, select a reason. I'll say this is a test transaction, and it should not require me to enter a note. And I will request cancellation. This should be a successful cancellation request because I'm doing it within the initial 10 minutes, so the cancellation should go through without any problems, and it did. It's already canceled, and the funds should have been returned to my wallet. So it's as simple as that. That was a cancellation. I did a successful submit. I showed you how to get the show an estimate without having any customer details for those customers who walk in and just want to know how much it is to send to X destination, so they can get information on your fees and rates. We talked about the submit process, the how to change the amounts. You can change the delivery methods or the mode of payment here, cash pickup. The same, these screens, these sections look very similar to what you had before. They've just been rearranged a little bit differently. The functionality is all the same. You say include all country when, for example, the recipient's location does not show that we have the payer they're looking for nearby. You can include all country and you'll get the full list of payers for that destination. You have the different modes of payment. Each one obviously will come up with its own requirement. And as you saw earlier with my test to Pakistan, there are fields on the screen, validations throughout the screen that basically tell you when something is required and when it's optional, such as you see here. The address, for example, address 2 is optional. Postal code, email, things like that are optional. And you can see we have little hints inside the screen as well as outside, whether it's optional or required, hints on what the required input is. If I go back to my Pakistan example for a second, it'll show you if I were to do a new recipient in Pakistan, it would show you that what the format is right here. This is a customer that already has a bank account on file, but let's say if I wanted to do a different account number, here's the format. It gives you a hint of the IBAN. So we have validations throughout the screen. We have many of those in the pre-existing version as well, the legacy version, but in this version we've added even more. To conclude, let's talk about adding a new customer from scratch, either a receiver or a sender. To add a receiver, it's as simple as you cancel. Instead of doing a search, you can start typing. James Smith, blah, blah, blah. And as you fill out the fields, everything that's required will be shown. I've put in first and last name. It seems like country is required. So I will say Ivory Coast. And the city is required. And some form of address is required. I'll just say, and you are done with the addition of a new receiver. When you're done, you can hit save to simply save that receiver information on the sender's profile, and you're done. You don't have to submit a transaction. Or you can proceed to actually submitting a transaction. Likewise, when adding a new sender, you can simply go here and start typing. Same thing as what we've done with the receiver side. And when you're done, you can either save or you can continue with the receiver section and then compose a transaction. And that concludes our tutorial on the new one-page transaction submit process for money transfer. I hope this has been informative. As always, should you have any questions, please either refer to this user guide or tutorial on the feature, or contact your account manager for more information or more detailed information on any particulars that we've covered today, or those we may not have covered, in case you run into questions or concerns regarding the new checkout process that's been introduced into the portal. Again, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. Good luck with this new process should you choose to make it your default option. And please continue to stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.